Hello my friends. In this video I would like to talk to you about something very special, which is Copilot, a Microsoft product, but from the point of view of a developer, something from inside of Visual Studio. Copilot is available for so many things right now. Almost every single product has a Copilot in it. But as far as writing code, it is really interesting to see how you can actually get so much help writing code. You only have to concentrate on code that only you can write. All the other cookie cutter code that you are used to write can actually be written for you nowadays. Also finding trivial bugs or leaking of memories, stuff like that. This could actually be very, very easy in the future. As of right now, you can see on my screen, there is a Visual Studio extension for GitHub Copilot preview. That's happened right on the May 23rd of 2023. By the time you get this video, probably this has been released and available from extensions in Visual Studio. But for right now, you will notice here you have to actually apply to be on a waiting list. The good news is, as of Microsoft build in May of 2023, the wait list is very short, maybe 24 to 48 hours max, and they will allow you to get in. Alrighty, so that's an important thing. So the first thing you want to do is to go ahead and apply for the waiting list. If you get this in the next couple of months in 2023, by the middle or end of the year, all the stuff is not necessary. You will be able to get that automatically from the extensions in Visual Studio itself. Anyway, this is the marketplace for visualstudio.com. You can see it there. You can click on download. That will bring you a file called a V6 file. You will be able to run that file and make sure that Visual Studio is closed when you do that. And then it will run this extension. Notice also there is another thing in here, is that you have to have a GitHub ID. Alrighty. So when I got this, for instance, I was able to get my GitHub ID and put it into the waiting list. And that GitHub ID was the one associated with my account to be able to use it. That will change probably in the future as well. But again, in the next months or two, as of May 2023, if you would like to play with this, this is the way to do it. And make sure in Visual Studio itself, you have that GitHub ID, whatever email address you're associated with, is actually in the setup. You are a user already identified in Visual Studio with that ID. Sounds good? So that is the first piece. Let me go ahead and bring this down. And let's get into Visual Studio. This is Visual Studio 2022. You'll notice here I have a project open. This project could be .NET Framework, it could be .NET Core, it could be Python code, it could be Node.js, it could be a lot of different languages, and they keep adding more and more languages as well to the Copilot in Visual Studio. I'm opening in here one of my favorite products, which is Sitefinity. It's a CMS system. And I have a project that contains, for instance, a lot of different MVC controllers and models and views. And I'm trying to ask the system if I can get some help with this. So sometimes I will inherit code as a consultant. I'll be given code. And sometimes there is so much code I don't understand why this class was there or why this function is doing exactly. And instead of actually spending a lot of time trying to figure out what's going on, now the Copilot will be able to help me very, very much. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'm going to go ahead to the MVC folder, for instance, here in the controller. I have a lot of different C# files in here. The last one is a slider MVC controller. This is somebody who wrote a carousel to be able to show every 5 seconds images and photos going from right to left or left to right, regular carousel. But somebody wrote a controller for it. If I double click on this controller in here, you will notice, for instance, I have a class called slider MVC controller. It inherits from controller. I have an action result. I have a function in here that returns a dynamic content, things I might not be very familiar with. So let's see what exactly is Copilot can do for you. And now that the V6 has been installed in Visual Studio, that means this system has Copilot running in the background. And to make sure that you have Copilot installed, if you go to the View menu here in Visual Studio, you'll notice here there is something called GitHub Copilot Chat. That has to be available in here. If you don't see it in View here, something went wrong with the installation of the V6. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Copilot Chat in here, and you'll notice on the right side of the screen, you'll get a new window called the GitHub Copilot Chat. And now I can actually go ahead and ask the Copilot any questions in English about what I'm doing. Not only that, you don't actually have to do it right in here. You can go straight in the code. So I can go maybe right before this class in here called slider MVC controller, push a space, And right above it, you will notice in here I can right click, for instance, and one of the things that are available, Ask Copilot. I can also do an Alt plus slash, and that will open up the Ask Copilot. So let's go to the Copilot in here. I will say Ask Copilot, and he will say, for instance, what does that class do? And let me take the G out of there and put a question mark and then push enter. And notice what's happening on the right side. It's reading the class for the slider MVC controller. And in here will say the selected code block represents a class called blah, blah, blah that inherits from controller class. And then this class contains two methods, index and retrieve collection of parallax items. And it will give you some information in English to be able to understand why this code is in there and what it's supposed to be doing. If I go, for instance, under retrieve collection of parallax item, maybe I don't know what this is. Put the cursor here. You can still do Ask Copilot and write it before that, or you can just have the cursor right there and go to the Ask Copilot, and I will say, what does this method do, for instance? So I can actually just do some investigation. So right now it will say the selected method is called so and so. It reads a collection of dynamic content objects from a provider named Open Access Provider, and will give you a lot of information. It will also show you the string type that you're trying to convert into a type resolution in here as well, and trying to explain all the stuff. If you need more information, what does this type resolution service do? You can ask it here. It's just like, what does type resolution service do? And how does it actually take a string and turn it into a type? So you can do a lot of investigation really to be able to understand what this code you're about to read here as well. Not only that, but look at the beauty of having an action result in here, for instance. What if I tell the system, if I put the cursor in here, it'll say, create a new action result called Lino, alrighty, and returns a view called Lino view. I wonder if it will do that, if it will actually create an action results for me and call it Lino and will return a Lino view. Let's push enter and see. And look at that, it actually created the code. Not only that, if the cursor is right there, okay, I can actually come in here and say insert at the caret, and all of a sudden push the tab once, and now I have a brand new action results called Lino and return that. And the rest of the code, again, I just wanted to show you that this is just the hello world of the Copilot. Being able to ask a question in English, please explain to me what this code is doing. Sometimes I will have code that will cause an exception. I will say fix that specific error, and it will give you the code that will fix it. It will just say insert or replace the code, and it will replace the code that is causing the error, for instance. So again, you will need to only be concerned about the code that only you can write. All the other stuff, being able to create a function or be able to fix a bug, for instance, and so on. Sometimes we do an async call, we're not using tasks. It will fix that code for you automatically. So I think the productivity will be to the roof in the future, and you'll be able to focus on architecture and real code that will make a difference for your organization. Hopefully this was a very quick way of showing you Copilot running inside of a CMS system like Sitefinity. But again, like I said, you can try all these wonderful things with different language, Python. You can actually use Node.js, JavaScript, TypeScript. All of that is available for you to play around with. Have a great one, and I'll see you in the next video.